So it seems appropriate that we're up here in the Wicklow Mountains once again to test drive this, which is the new Ford Focus ST. Appropriate because, of course, the legend of the fast Ford was born and raised and bred on the rally stages of the world, and there is nothing more rally-like around hereabouts than the roads up here. But what is the Focus ST? Well, it's the medium hot Focus, although from now on it will be, sadly, the hottest with the demise of the mighty Ford Focus RS. This is going to be the fastest Focus you will be able to buy. It has a 280 horsepower version of the 2.3 litre EcoBoost turbocharged four-cylinder engine that you'll also find doing duty in the Ford Mustang. Now that drives a 6-speed gearbox through to the front wheels, and it has 420 Newton meters of torque. All of those figures are what are colloquially known as quite enough to be getting on with. This is a very, very brisk car, and it's brisker still through the corners because underneath here there is a front diff supplied by Borg-Warner, which helps stick the tyres to the tarmac when you're accelerating hard. It helps tuck the nose in when you want to, and it's really, really quite effective as well. This is a very agile car, very sporty. Doesn't really look it though. If you look at it, it's still that quiet, understated current Ford Focus. I think this is easily enough the best looking of the current Focus editions, even though it's not shouting and screaming in the manner of, say, a Honda Civic Type R. Really the only way you'll spot the ST from the sort of spec'd up ST line versions which come with conventional engines are these magnetite grey alloy wheels. All the rest is very, very subtle, very, very understated, very, very nice. I like that in a performance car. You don't necessarily want to shout or to advertise about yourself. But how does it drive once we get it up there onto the rally stages, onto the mountains? Let's go find out. So what's the Focus ST actually like to drive? Well, as you can probably hear a little bit in the background, it's quite noisy. Not in a bad way, not in an unrefined way. There's actually a lovely burble that comes off this 2.3 litre EcoBoost engine. It's almost not like a four-cylinder engine. Actually, there's a tiny, tiny hint of five-cylinder noise off this engine, some of which I suspect may be mildly artificially manufactured somewhere in the stereo system. But whatever, it is a good sound. It sounds encouraging, it sounds enticing, it sounds inciting in some ways. The steering is a bit strange. It's not as slick and it's not as sharp as hot Focuses or indeed as ordinary Focuses of old. There's a bit of rubber, there's a bit of bounce in the mechanism as you turn in, but it has to be said, when you do turn in, the response from the front is instantaneous. It's got a really, really good setup. There's loads of grip, loads of traction. You're never going to wonder if you're going to make the apex of a corner. The 6-speed gear shift is also really, really lovely. It feels very similar to the shift that you get in the Mustang, which, as I said, does share this engine with the Focus ST. And it has a nice mechanical sound to it as you click and clink between the gears. These seats by Recaro, they look really good, but I have to say they're not my favourite. A bit of a problem with hot Fords in recent years has been that seats are just too tight and too narrow across the bum and across the shoulder blades if you're built along similar lines to me. The seats in the Civic, the seats in the Golf GTI are much, much nicer, it has to be said. And this cabin, there are good bits and bad bits. The screen is good, the steering wheel is nice, the overall quality is very, very decent, but it's let down badly by little things like the cheapy, scratchy plastic around the air conditioning controls, by the fact that the dials look a bit old-fashioned and out of date. There are better ways of doing this, and competition, particularly the Golf, does things like that better. But overall, it is very, very practical, which I'm very pleased to see. The old Focus ST, the bucket seats were so big and bulky that they basically took away all of your rear legroom. In this one, that mistake has not been made. There's decent space in the back, and there's still a very healthy boot. So it's ticking those practical hot hatch buttons. This is a car you could use every day. Obviously, it's going to be a bit thirsty. Obviously, it's going to be a bit firm riding. Obviously, it's going to be a bit noisy, but it's not excessively so in any of those arenas. It does feel like a car that you could comfortably cruise from one end of the country to the other in and not get knackered by it. Your significant other is not going to complain about the way it hits bumps and rides over bad surfaces. Your kids are not going to complain that they get car sick in the back of it. So it does all those things really quite well. Again, not quite as well as the Golf GTI, but well enough to be in contention, well enough to be able to provide the Golf with some decent competition. And that, after all, is what we're all about here. So what do we think about this, the new Ford Focus ST? Well, it kind of falls into a bit of a middle ground because you've got cars like the Golf GTI at one end, which is a bit slicker, a bit more refined, a bit better as an everyday car. And at the other end, you've got cars like the Honda Civic Type R, which is lairier, noisier, shoutier, more thrilling, more exciting. Now that middle ground could be an uncomfortable one, but in some ways it's also quite a nice place for the Focus to be because it has enough of the Golf's refinement and everyday driving and just about enough of the more thrilling end of things from the Civic Type R. It is really good fun. It's got great steering. That diff really hooks up the front end in corners. It sounds rorty and it sounds nice when you rev it out. So there's a good balance going on here. It is a bit expensive. So at €41,000, just over for this one, that's quite a lot of money for anything wearing a Ford badge. But I have to say it does perform much, much better than the old Ford Focus ST. That was a car I just never got on with and never quite liked. This is a significant improvement. It's not necessarily the best hot hatch around, but it is a very good one. If you like this video, don't forget to click down below to like and subscribe. And remember that there's always lots and lots of video content to watch here on the CompleteCar.ie YouTube channel.